Dwayne The Rock Johnson should put a ring on it and dash, for his kid's sake. Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Lauren Hashian recently announced they're expecting their second child this spring, outside of marriage. Although cohabiting Hollywood couples present an unusually glamorous and attractive model of unmarried family life, their path into family formation is not as unusual as it once would have been. A study examining U.S. births between 2006 and 2010 found that almost 1 in 4 children, 23%, are born to cohabiting couples. But theirs is not an example that should be imitated. It's true that cohabitation has become a normal and accepted practice in the United States in recent years. While cohabitation was frowned upon in the age of Leave It to Beaver, today most adults will cohabit at some point in their lives. But even though cohabitation is increasingly appealing to adults, that doesn't mean it is good when children are involved. Washington politics is polarized, but the center is fighting back. Joe Lieberman. Obama's next project should be fatherhood. Cohabitation is appealing to many adults because it offers more freedom, more flexibility and less commitment than marriage. And it's not without its own benefits, for the adults. An Ohio State study finds that young adults, especially women, get about as much of an emotional boost from living with a partner as they do from marriage. But these benefits do not extend to the growing number of children who are spending time in a cohabiting family. That's because for kids less commitment between the two people heading up their family often spells trouble. Cohabiting families in America, partly because they are characterized by markedly lower levels of commitment, are also characterized by markedly higher levels of instability. In fact, children born to cohabiting parents in the United States are almost twice as likely to see their parents break up by age 12, according to my research. That instability matters because children are more likely to flounder when they face a revolving cast of caretakers and unrelated adults in their lives, particularly when those unrelated adults are men. Yet today, more than 40% of American children will spend time in a cohabiting household, either because they were born to cohabiting parents or because one or both of their parents moved in with an unrelated partner after the relationship between their two parents broke down. Such children are more likely to struggle. How? Let's compare the outcomes of two hypothetical, yet representative, children. Sarah, a child living with her mom and a cohabiting boyfriend who is not her dad, and Amanda, whose parents are married. In grade school and middle school, Sarah will be more than 4 times more likely to experience serious emotional problems than Amanda, according to research by the Urban Institute. Sarah is also twice as likely to get expelled, suspended or struggle in school. And when it comes to the threat of abuse, a child like Sarah faces a much higher risk than a child like Amanda. Children living in cohabiting families with an unrelated adult are about 10 times more likely to be physically, sexually, or emotionally abused, according to a 2010 report from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. What can be done to improve outcomes for kids? For Valentine's Day, my wife gave me a marriage performance review policing the USA, a look at race, justice, media. For starters, policymakers could change regulations that penalize marriage, especially for couples with children who are cohabiting. Today, more than 4 in 10 families in America receive some kind of means-tested government assistance, from Medicaid to food stamps. Many of these families are headed by couples who receive more benefits if they are unmarried and don't report their joint income. Federal and state governments should allow such couples to marry without losing their benefits, a move Minnesota recently made regarding cash welfare in the state. But the answer isn't entirely about public policy. We also need to change the culture. Cultural icons like The Rock are outliers among successful Americans. Most people who make it don't do so as actors, but in much less glamorous jobs. And most successful professionals know the best way to start a family is to get married before having children. Today, the vast majority of college-educated couples have their children in marriage and stay married. They know that stable marriage is best for their kids, and act accordingly. But this marriage mentality has lost ground among poor and working-class Americans, who are less likely to appreciate how important marriage is for their kids, and more likely to have children in a cohabiting union. Marriage has partly lost ground among the poor and working class because men in these communities are having a tougher time finding decent paying, stable jobs. But marriage has also lost ground in these communities because the larger culture rarely stresses the importance of stable marriage and often spotlights stars, from The Rock to the Kardashians, who flout it. That's why it's high time for our schools, media outlets and, yes, even Hollywood superstars to come around on a norm that is timeless. It's best to get hitched before having children. So here is to hoping that The Rock and Lauren Hashian will tie the knot before baby number 2 arrives later this spring. W. Bradford Wilcox, professor of sociology at the University of Virginia, is director of the Home Economics Project at the American Enterprise Institute and the Institute for Family Studies. Follow him on Twitter, @WilcoxNMP.